Yeah, also at home I'm talking often about Pacioli. And wait one thing, there's something going on here. Yeah. So my wife got very tired. She said, okay, now we have to go to Italy, to San Sepolcro. That is here. Okay, it doesn't show there, but on the right. This is Italy. You see Florence here, San Sepolcro, and the Caprese Michelangelo. A little to the right is the sea, a little to the left is the sea. Oh yeah, maybe that's good if I walk away. It would, yeah. We made a trip. It felt like a pilgrimage, I must say. So this is really a special place. Actually, it happened almost exactly 550 years ago. When I flew up here, I got a little message, 550 year Michelangelo. So his birthday was a Monday, but 550 years ago. And Pacioli about the same time. And not far away, this is 20 kilometers. And there were more in San Sepolcro. It's just a collection of genius. And all about the same time. It's incredible. So, of course, you have there Caprese Michelangelo, and who doesn't know this picture? Of course. And then we have Piero della Francesco. He was the guy who really introduced the perspective. You know, the three-dimensional painting. There were one or two paintings before him, but he was really obsessed. Okay, this is a very extreme. He took it from a low perspective. You know, the guys look very big, but of course they are in the right. It's the flagellation of Christ. Here, a very famous picture. So, and this guy taught Pacioli. And Pacioli had a mathematical mind, so he could turn it into mathematical expressions. And of course, Pacioli and Michelangelo, they met in Florence. Pacioli became a monk. He was a Franciscan monk, but not one in the monastery, one who could travel around and teach and write books and all that. So he did that extensively. He became pretty rich by it. And his co-brothers didn't like it too much. He had a too high nose, you know. Pacioli always thinks he has special rights. So that's the case. And so here it's me. This is Pacioli on the right and me. So that's in San Sepolcro, finally at the aim of my pilgrimage here, where I found. You see even the letters, which are Luca, you know, they're all mathematical written. So he even did these kind of things. Now, Pacioli, first of all, he wrote Divina Proporzione, and the drawings are from Da Vinci. So Da Vinci did the drawings in his books, and he did the writing. So he transmitted what he learned from Piero della Francesco. He transmitted it to Leonardo da Vinci, and Leonardo helped him. So they were close friends. Actually, they lived in the same house for about 3 years in Florence. But his most famous book is this, Summa di Aritmetica. Sorry for the Italians here if I have a strange pronunciation. Geometrica Proporzione e Proporzionalità. Short Summa. He published it 1494. And it was the first book published on math here, the first thing. And he produced about 1,000 or 2,000, it's not exactly, and of the 1,000 or 2,000 are all at least 100, some say 200, but 160, let's take, is a very good guess, still existent. Imagine of what we write. It is here and in a second it's gone. So one of these first books still here to be read. So there he really, it's the first book really on math. He introduced really the Arabic numbers into Europe. Before there was a resistance against Arabic numbers, so he did all that. And a lot of rules, as it's full of rules, like the rule of 72. You might know, if you want to know when it doubles, you divide 72 by the percentage. And that doubles, 3% doubles in 24 years. So easy calculation. It works up to 20% about correctly. Then it's not correct anymore. Such things here. And up to then, math was like esoterics. You played with numbers and you got a funny result and people were wondering. It's like magic, and it was in this court. He took it out of magic and he was the first who applied it to reality. So actually, this book, it was 200 years used as mathematical book. Actually, today it's almost forgotten. What is really known are just 36 pages of that book, which is about accounting. Computers and scriptores, that's the part. Just a little chapter. For this is known. He's the father of accounting, and especially the double entry system. So he was the first guy who really described the double entry systems, and he didn't invent it. He saw it happened already in Venetia. And they were different. Every city had its method, but they were all similar. And he did the Venetian method because he was in Venetia teaching there, and there he saw it, how it happens. Actually, the art goes back probably about to the 11th century. So then it's where they really discovered the double entry. That's the really new thing. Recording we do since thousands of years, but the double entry, that was really new. That was really new. And then, of course, there is the debit, credit. The book, the accountants do debit, credit, since 500 years, according to Pacioli here. So, what most people remember from there is the memorandum. Actually, the memorandum, most people don't remember. That's already forgotten. He starts with the reality of finance. Then he says, every day you have to make a scrapbook, which means you take all the facts which are important for today and you write them down. That's the first step, memorandum. Then you put it into the journal. So you write them orderly with debit and credit and amount and comment. So that was the journal. From where you put it into the general ledger, where you collect all entries of the same account in one page or in several pages. And from there, we then produce the balance sheet and the P&L. So these were the steps, and that's what we remember most here. But if you really read the Summa, and I took the pain to read it, and it's only 36 pages, so everybody can read it. So then you see his main occupation is really with the things which go before the memorandum. That you have to organize everything in a very tedious way, very careful. He says, start your day with a prayer, pray to Jesus, to God, the cross, everything. He repeats these things, and if you do an error, it's really bad for you. So be very careful. That's what he says. And then he says, put it into letters, clip it together, put it in pouches, do that, so that at the end of the day, you need to know every day what you have to do. And the business is a flow. A business is a flow. And then he mentioned not only these books I mentioned before, several other ones where you have to record. And the Ricordanze, that's one of the most important. He said, here you have to record the things which are very dangerous if you forget them. And these are things which happen over time. And he mentioned especially financial contracts, because you enter a contract today, and today you have to remember for 30 years. In 30 years, you have to remember what to pay and what to receive. So these are very, very long-term things. Now, and I think the accountants took it serious, so that was how a bank looked like 1960. 70, 60 say, and then 70 started to change. You had all these recordings, these files, these pouches, all ordered, like if you had a mortgage and it had to pay in March, you probably put it into the order of March on the right day, pick it out, write it in the memorandum, write it in the journal, write it in the general ledger, and then produce the thing. These were the orders. You had to be highly organized. But even if you were best organized, it was still error prone. You make thousands of bookings, every day, debit, credit, and a little thing, and you're off. So then you do, at the end, after the channel, you do a trial balance, and it doesn't tally. you know, and then they remembered this quote from Pacioli, never go to sleep if debit and credit does not tally. So accountants had huge sleepless nights. Actually, Pacioli didn't even say it. I went into his thing, you don't find it, but you find a lot of things which turn into that saying. So it's not really a direct quote. There are many such quotes where you think somebody quoted, never quoted, like it still turns, you know, like Galileo. He said, you know, he said after it still the earth turns. He didn't say it. It was a painting about 200 years later where you first saw it, you know. So these kind of things, but they are put into the mouth of somebody, and so they have impressions. So it's a good one, and I think every accountant knows that even today. Recently, I talked to an accountant. You know, if it's just a cent off, it keeps him from sleeping. You know, there is an error. You know, it has to tell you it's a logical system. So now, 450 years forward, computer comes. And of course, IBM, they want to sell their computer. They don't want to save the world. They want to produce a lot of money for themselves. So they find banks would be good customers. But still, they have to find low-hanging fruit. So where it is. And the low-hanging fruit is a big problem, which a guy high up has. You know, somebody who can write the check. Of course, now I imagine a meeting like this here. Okay, here the bankers. And of course, there's the director, which is now the CEO in our language, and the accountant, which we now call CFO. So these two guys sitting there. And he asks, what is your biggest problem? You know, and the accountant, very tired, you know, I can't sleep. You know, I have a lot of sleepless nights here. Okay, this is a low-hanging fruit. So this and the easy problem to solve for computer. The most easy part. So Bank of America developed the first one. It was called ERMA, Electronic Record Machine Accounting, 1955. And then the first in Europe was Martin's Bank, was a very innovative bank, but was eaten up. Proudly announced, our bank is the first bank in this country to use an electronic computer for the complete current account bookkeeping, including the statements for customers. Also early 1960s. So what was the entry point? The entry point was accounting. And that was the worst possible entry point into the system of finance. If we started at the end, if Pacioli would see, he would turn himself in the grave. I'm 100% sure. So, and what did happen then? We had the first system, and it was current account. You know, current accounts produce the most bookings. You know, draw money, put in money, draw money, put in money. Thousands of bookings every day. So very error prone. So easy to solve and good to solve. So they had transaction processing, the accounting system as such. You know, where you record the accounting, and at the same time they had the books. Because in the accounting, the number which you have at the end of the day is the number which you have in the books. So it's one-to-one, easy, no brainer. Okay, good start. So then they figured out, okay, we could also handle bonds, you know, and somehow they have to go to accounting as well. Okay, that's the next step. So they integrated into this kind of accounting system. And then suddenly said, there's some regulatory report which we can derive from the data as well. Okay, that's here. More systems, more demands, and the spaghettis grow. The spaghettis grow. So we have a growing land bank. If you have n systems at the bottom and m on the top, you have n times m connections. And that's not easy to maintain, especially if the number grows. Multiplication is a dangerous operation. So it grows pretty fast. Now, meanwhile, the business of IBM did go bad. They couldn't sell their mainframes anymore. So they had to have a new idea. And they came. They said, okay, now we created a mess, but now we help you to unleash the mess, to clean up the mess. So they turned into consultants. And they showed up everywhere. Now they had very expensive consulting hours. And they sold the idea of the data warehouse. They said, you put just all the data into the data warehouse, and from the data, you put it to any application up there. So what does it amount to? You turned n times n into n plus m. Really a fantastic idea, really very good. It reduces it drastically, the numbers, especially if the numbers are like 10, 20 or something like that. The reduction is fantastic here. So we have now n plus m, huge progress as it seems here. But there's a hinge to it, there's a problem. In the transaction processing, a financial contract is understood as an algorithm. If it were not, the system wouldn't work. You know, what is a machine doing? It does calculation. What is a financial contract? It's a pure calculation. Every interest calculation, payback calculation, these are mathematical functions, simple mathematical functions. So at the level of transaction processing, you have data and logic together. So they work. What do you move into a data warehouse? The name says it. Data. Where is the logic? Lost in translation. And you feel it very much if you have ever looked into a real data warehouse. You can put anything in there. And a lot of contradiction, everything here. And what do you need to analyze? You need the cash flows. The very same cash flow the system calculating below. Below, they're just calculating it stepwise, day by day. Up, you need it into the finality of it. So how do you get there? You reinvent the machine again. So you reinvent all the mechanisms which are below. That's what you're doing here. And the reality is not n plus m, but it remained n times n. Why? Look, I did a lot of mapping. You know, from my experience, I saw banks, really. And I saw all the chaos. And then you came into a bank, and especially in the 90s or early 2000s, you had to praise the data warehouse. You were not allowed to say this is all bullshit or something like that. You would have been saying, here is your door, you know, go out, please. So we said, yeah, fantastic. But what we did, we smuggled our own little data warehouse to the left or to the right. Where what we did, we actually made sure that we understood what happens at the bottom. We were not reading the data where the already munched data. We went to the source and we just said, please copy this from this, and we knew from which system it came. So that is, and then because each system manages a certain type of operation. So there's a saving systems, they understand savings. The bond system understands bonds. The mortgage system understands mortgages. And they have a certain pattern, and the patterns are differently. So we said, for example, if we did, let's say we were this risk management system. So we said, if the data comes from mortgage, please do that. And if it comes from current account, please do that, and the bond, do that. So we turned, we had now n times m just, but in if-then statements. So now you have a lot of if-then statements, and there was no thing. Then people realized that as well, they changed names, they call it data mart. Now it's a data mart, because from each application you have to make a different translation. Because what you do, if you translate from below up, you do not just translate a date. You don't translate like year, months, day to day, months, or something like that. You have to translate the logic of the algorithm with it, because the data and the logic is a unit in finance. It cannot be separated. Exactly. We extract this, the data. Yeah, exactly. And now they call it data lake, you know, and just listen to the names people are giving. Swamp is the next level, for sure. You know, then we are honest, or grave, or something like that. We have not improved. And it looks to be a little bit, I don't know, you know, there's Molière, I don't know whether you know the Malade Imaginaire. It's a funny thing from Molière. You know, there's a guy who always is ill for every reason, and he has a daughter, a beautiful daughter, and then there's a guy he would like his daughter to marry, the daughter abhors him, you know, and he's quite stupid, and he becomes a doctor, you know, then he wants to show his art, and he is like in a test. He asks him, what do you do if you have a cold nose? Then you have to bleed. They were bleeding, the leeches, you bleed. What do you do if you have a headache? You bleed. What do you do if you break a leg? You bleed, and so on. So that was the question. Then they raised the stakes, so that was already a very good answer for that time, Then they said, and what do you do if the bleeding doesn't work? Then he said, rebleed. And that's exactly what happens here. We create a mess. We call consultants. What should we do? We have a mess in our data. More data. And the mess increases. The mess increases. We just add data for all specific cases and turn it into our meaning. And the mess, it has to be healed from the bottom. Now, that is how a bank looks today in reality. This is a picture from Rabobank. It's not clear enough here, but it's really Rabobank, and I got it from the internet, so it's not stolen. So here, the lower part you can call the transaction processing, and the upper part you can call the analytic level. In the lower part, you transact, the saving, the bonds, that you know every day what to do. And the upper part, you want to understand what is happening below, and you want to plan. So that's basically up. You do finance, risk, regulation. Low, you do transaction processing. Engineers of Rabobank did that. Why? Because they said, we can't understand what is happening in this bank. So they made this model here. And they made it so that you could walk, like in cyberspace, you could walk in it. So it looks like that. And the voice in the off says, this is a highly simplified picture of reality. So here, that is the thing here. And you see every system below is connected to every system above. And they have maybe 100 systems below, 50 above, so it makes 5,000 interfaces. It's basically impossible to maintain here. And why do they have so many boxes below? They grew by merger. And they had many, let's say, mortgage banks and things like that. And they said, okay, your mortgage, me mortgage, we do the same thing. Let's get together. Let's make out of 2, 1. And they ended up with 3. Because the thing would not integrate. Because you can program things so differently, it doesn't match at the end of the day. So that's the result. And Pacioli saw that already. I found that funny quote in the same book. Woe to you if you have to do anything with these people, the bankers, he meant there. Therefore, be very careful when dealing with them, because in these offices, they often change the clerks, and each one of these clerks likes to keep the books in his own way. He's always blaming the previous clerks, saying that they did not keep their books in good order, and they want always to try make up you believe that their way is better than all others. And so that at times they mix up the accounts in the books in these offices in such a way that they do not correspond with anything. That was written 550 years ago, so, a long time. So here, but he had a good excuse. He was, he was humble. He said, maybe they mean it well. Nevertheless, they show ignorance. And if people always tell me, the bankers are greedy, evil. That's why they make these things so complicated. I always say, ignorance. Now I use even another word, but let's use ignorance. That's the thing. It's really no time for thinking, because you have to make your buck. So that doesn't leave you. Now comes in Pacioli. I'm a little bit over time, but I will save it in the next one. So I think we should. Otherwise, we don't have the basic. So now, I try to stand on the shoulder of Pacioli. So how would he have solved the problem if he, taking serious what he wrote there? So first of all, as I said already, he makes so many quotes where he said, you have to do the job before you ever start accounting. That needs to be set up well. Only then accounting will make a lot of sense. And he still talks about all these books, and we take that serious. So his first observation, if I may so, is he would have seen what are bankers doing. And he would have understood they issue financial contract, they maintain the life cycle of financial contract, they buy and sell it, and they have to understand it all the time. They have to analyze it continuously here. And then the next question, so it shows financial contracts need to be in the center. Many people say, yeah, my system is customer-centric. I say that's the wrong starting point. It must be contract-centric. Every contract belongs to a customer, and there you can be customer-centric. There's no real, but the real initial state is the contract itself. This is the business of banking here. Okay, then he would observe, finance has become much more complex than in his day. If in his treatise, he only talks about current accounts. So he only they had only current accounts. Now they have all these kind of modes. So, and he would have said, they have become very complex. So now he would see. But then he would go into and look at the contracts very clearly, at all of the contract, and he would find the following. He would say, first of all financial contracts are exchanges of payments. That's very special. Only you give money. What do you get back? Money. All other economic contracts, money against good. Money is a simple thing, one-dimensional. Good is 100-dimensional. You can quarrel forever. Money, a dollar is a dollar. A euro is a euro. Finish. And you only exchange that. And then you have a dollar today. There was a discussion about money, but it's actually only now a number. It's only a number of account. We exchange numbers. I owe you so many numbers, and you owe me so many numbers. That's all. There's a little now. Swiss franc maybe is backed yet by something, but the rest is by debt. More or less, dollar is debt. Pure debt, so it's a debt against the government and things like that. So that's the thing. And then financial contracts, as we saw, are flows. So they flow into each other, and the sequence of flow is they are linked by algorithms. One calculation of it's a real state transition engine. Really a state transition, and that's by the way how ACTUS is coded also. And most beautifully, if you look at all financial contracts except the hyper crazy, keep out the 1%, maybe, or maybe a little bit less than 1%. They follow less than 3 dozen percent. And that includes exotic options like knock in, knock out, let's say normally. But I never say we cover 100%. If I say that, you set up, I will create you one, which is outside. So let you create, but the relevant ones, and actually most banks run on a half a dozen patterns, just to see the reality. We made a test with Reuters at that time, all the bonds, 94 or 96% follow the most simple pattern you can imagine. Of all the bonds in the world, you know that. And let's solve the real problems and not go after the crazies who do something more stupid, which is here today and gone tomorrow. So based on this observation and with his mathematical skills, he would have come to the following conclusion. Financial contract must take center stage. Financial contract must be represented by well-defined algorithms, not by heaps of papers written by lawyers. So that's the first thing. And everything of interest in finance, once you have a formula to start with, it's all derivation. There's no business as simple as finance, which starts with a function, with a mathematical operation. We will come yet to the risk factors and so a little bit later and how that interacts with them. But it's the easiest possible business you can imagine. But financial contracts are digital by nature. So given this simple starting point, how were we able to create such a mess? How did we do it? So we have data heaps instead of well-defined contract here. ACTUS is the way out. It sounds a bit, but it is. It is. It is the alphabet. It's the thing here, and it needs to be a standard. It needs to be, because each little thing box has a standard by its own. We just have thousands of standards. So that's the problem. We need to have a common standard. So that's it. And this is what ACTUS mainly does. ACTUS does not only define the data, which is the input, but the algorithm. The data is useless, is meaningless with the algorithm. If you say 5%, what does it mean? It's a number 0.05. But you use it on the way to calculate interest, and it has a lot of other variables which go into it. So the data and functions here cannot be separated. That's the main thing. And maybe here to say, the idea of separation of data and algorithm, that comes from physics. In physics, you have to separate it because you have data and model. You know, if you model the circle around the sun, this is a model. I mean, started with a model. We thought it was a cycle, then it turns into an ellipse and more wobbling and so on. But here, data and algorithm is a unique an issue. The financial contract is a set of algorithms. And this is these are the 32 contract types now defined. Here on the left side, you have the cash flow exchange. That's one part of a financial contract. On the right side, the credit enhancement. What happens if you stop paying? And then I can't go now into detail here because I'm much delayed already. But let's look at one, AN contract. AN is annuity. Yeah. No, we have the code even. You can download the code. We have defined and we have coded it. You can download it. It's all there. Then you have to put data in contract, and then everything goes. I will show you right now. Let's take this AN contract. AN stands for annuity. So most mortgage contracts are annuities. Leasing contracts, most are annuities. Life annuities, from where the name comes, are annuities. And so on. They follow the annuity formula. Basically, there will still be some lawyers. So I don't think we get totally rid of them. But a little bit they have to say it. But the main core is the exchange of cash flows. So for there, they shouldn't have any say. But there's a little bit, where do we meet in court if still, and things like that, you know, so there might be there. But now you can imagine a contract written directly says, it follows the ACTUS standard, it follows the contract type AN, and you have already attributes in the contract here. So now you could even have a little button here, maybe even a lawyer could have a little button here. So you enter now the data, click, and you would get something like that. So, okay, now we promise you, okay, this is a rather common, it is a mortgage with a free period and then variable rate and things like that, a little bit complex, but you would see the cash flows. And if you see the cash flow, you see the detail. There's no deeper level. That's a deeper, if you don't understand finance here, then you're not likely to make a financial contract. Then you should really not enter. But 98% of human beings, or 99, can understand that. I'm very sure. Yeah. On the right side, you have it yet in numbers. So that means all the actions which you have defined, now have to pay this, an interest rate has to be adjusted, the principal has to be paid, etc. And this here is rock bottom of finance. That's the string level of finance here. From there, everything derives. Everything derives here. So here you have, you use it in transaction processing. Think about, you do a deal and you do pre-deal checking. Duck. Did we promise that? Yes, no. Then you can enter the deal. You do the life cycle management with the same algorithm. Then you do all the finance accounting, traditional, IFRS, the fair value calculation, whatever you wish. Profitability, budgeting, forecasting, valuation, all the risk management, market, credit risk, it's all linked to that. Of course, there are things to be done outside at the contract, but in the core of it is always the contract. And even regulation will go there. We are on the way to nudging them there. We work and we have a POC with the ECB. We have contacts in the US, OCC, and DTCC, the CTO. Just met them recently again, somebody from us here. So they want to go to ACTUS. That would mean every financial contract would be ab initio ACTUS. And you could not just send the nominal value or whatever out to the further value. You can send the details of the financial contract and everybody can understand it. You get the data, plug it into ACTUS, generate cash flows, do their own analysis. Now, who is profiting from that? I think everybody. I think most profiters are the banks themselves. Because that incredible mess, I think we can cut costs by half, really. It's all over the place. It's all handwork, basically, in banks here. But then there will be interoperability, which will increase. And then regulation, you can think anew. Now they pester you with these stupid reports which go in the dustbin, mainly. They give you a new report, and after 2 years you come with the report, scratch their head. And what was the question? They have already new questions here. In a new regulatory environment, they just ask the data in an understandable format, ACTUS. They do their own analysis, they do stress tests, they become analysts what they should be all the time here. So that will be much easier, and it will help to improve financial literacy. It will help the investors, but even financial literacy will be improved here. I'm very sure. I think everybody in maybe 10 years, we walk around and say, "Oh, I see all my financial obligations from the loan, from everything. Oh, should I do that? You know, it gives more cash here. Can I afford that, etc., etc." So you could see that. So this world is possible. We are ISO Liaison A member now. It will be an ISO standard very soon. So you will have ISO, I don't know which number, which we will get here. And if you are interested to repeat what I said, there are two on GARP. They are published on GARP. There is the short version and the long version. I would advise you to take the long version. But take the. So sorry, I have overstepped 10 minutes, but I'm going into the next. Give you maybe 2-3 minutes breath, or maybe some questions. Maybe we take the questions later. Oh yeah, or maybe yeah.
Have you contacted Bloomberg?
Yeah, we have via ISO, for example. We do have. No, they are very much there. So
we have implemented like the swap manager is your ACTUS cash flow management for a swap.
No,
but it's piecewise. I agree. So if they have some sort of a universal platform, they will be probably one of the earliest adopters. And then once they adopt it, everybody adopts it.
Exactly. Or if CTTC comes, that's very. Or if ECB says we need now the data in ACTUS, then it's like a free lunch.
Yeah. Contracts. If you calculate results, yes, they are synchronous.
They are.
If you have two contracts, X and Y, okay, you update Y. Okay, and X triggers Y, right?
It can be. Normally, contracts are pretty independent, but from an analytic perspective, they are combined.
So, asynchronous or synchronous? Two contracts, synchronous or
asynchronous, I would say.
Asynchronous?
Yeah. Unless they are a single construct, that's a different thing. Like if you have a swap, it's a different thing.
Okay, asynchronous. So you can save results in contract. Just define function.
We do save. ACTUS does not, but I do with application on top.
Okay. On top.
Yeah. ACTUS, you have to consider like the operating system of finance, and the operating system of finance. An operating system, you can't do anything with it, like with any operating system. You need Excel, you need Word, and you need such application. Then you can come to myself if you like, so I can give you beautiful stuff. But that's not open source, sorry. Somewhere we have to stop. I've given the shirt, but the trousers I will have to keep on.